Aryna Sabalenka just dropped a bombshell on the Qatar Open, and she is definitely not the only one walking away. It is an absolute mass exodus with heavy hitters dropping out so fast that the event is practically collapsing before the first serve. The Australian Open finalist and world number 2 has decided her couch is more appealing than defending her standing in Doha. Now the organizers are in full panic mode trying to fix the bracket, so let's dive into why this tournament is falling apart and what it means for the tour. Before we unpack this mess, hit the comments section and tell me what you think. Is this a legitimate injury crisis, or are these stars just playing strategic games with their schedules? Okay, breaking news, Sabalenka is officially out of Qatar, which is massive, considering she lifted the trophy there back in 2020. But the scary part, she's just the tip of the iceberg. This tournament is getting decimated by withdrawals, and you have to ask, what is scaring everyone away from Doha right now? The official line from Sabalenka is that she needs recovery time after Melbourne. She went to war in the final against Aryna Sabalenka and took a loss that was clearly brutal on both her mind and body. That kind of defeat leaves a scar, without a doubt. But it also proves she is an absolute force of nature. Reaching finals is just her baseline. Now she isn't going anywhere. In my book, she is still the one to beat, and walking away with over £1 million for second place is a decent consolation prize. But the check cleared and she is left needing some serious downtime. So rather than forcing her way through another bracket, she is skipping town to prep for the Dubai Championships, which seems smart. Pros need to recharge after a slam run, obviously, but this is where the plot thickens. Sabalenka actually has almost zero to lose by skipping the Qatar Open this year. Aside from that win in 2020, her track record at this venue has been pretty forgettable. Strategically, it is a no-brainer. Why grind yourself to dust for peanuts, when you can save that energy for tournaments that actually move the needle? However, Sabalenka is just one domino in this chain reaction. That's a jet chain reaction. The Qatar Open is bleeding talent. Iga Swiatek basically inherited the top seed by default because the original headliner vanished. You have Jessica Pegula bowing out and Naomi Osaka scrubbing the entire Middle East swing from her calendar. Madison Keys is gone, Barbora Krejcikova is out, and the injury ward is filling up with stars like Marketa Vondrousova stepping back. Leylah Fernandez, she hasn't even bothered to launch her season yet. At this rate, you have to wonder if there is even a tournament left to play. They are plugging holes in the main draw with qualifiers. We are seeing names like Alexandra Iala, Emiliana Arango, Daria Kasatkina, and Kristina Buxa promoted just to fill the empty slots. That is a disaster for a premier WTA event. You shouldn't be scrambling for warm bodies because half your star power decided to ghost you. We aren't talking about some minor challenger event here. This was supposed to be the crown jewel of the Middle East swing, and it is looking more like a B-team exhibition. Now let's get into Sabalenka's headspace post-Australia, because she got surprisingly real about the whole experience. During her press run after the loss to Rybakina, she tossed the media training out the window. She flat out admitted Rybakina was untouchable, and that her own best effort just wasn't enough to stop her. She confessed she blew some key chances, but shrugged it off as the brutal nature of the sport hero, one day zero the next. Then she delivered this gut punch of a quote, "Hopefully I will be more of a winner this season." Hoping and praying. You rarely hear a titan of the game speak that plainly. She is literally praying she doesn't choke again this year. That is miles away from the robotic confidence we usually get from elite athletes. That is the sound of a competitor who just had her heart ripped out on the big stage and is trying to heal. When asked about watching the match tape, her answer was even more telling. She told her agent to give it a rest, joking it might be a week, or whenever she stops hurting before she can face that footage. She described a hysterical moment of laughing and crying simultaneously, admitting it was a total mess. She was just purging all that emotion. She was furious with herself for letting Rybakina's aggression bully her out of the match after playing so well initially. But she managed to rein it in, acknowledging that her overall performance in Australia was stellar, even in the final. Sometimes you just have to tip your cap and admit the other player was simply better that day. Boom, cut to the chase. This moment right here strips away the glamour and shows the brutal mental toll on elite athletes. Sabalenka didn't mince words. We need to have a serious talk with the squad. Basically about how they're dodging me like the plague because I'm absolutely toxic to be around at the moment. Talk about radical self-awareness. She knows she's in a dark place and is practically putting up a hazard sign to warn people off before she snaps. You rarely see that kind of raw honesty in the polished world of professional tennis. Usually you get the robotic PR script, "I'll take the lessons from this loss and bounce back stronger." But Sabalenka, she's out there admitting to hysterical laughter, tears, and being such a nightmare that her own support team is hiding from her. That is real. That is the ugly aftermath of crashing out of a Grand Slam final after surviving 2 weeks of absolute hell. When you view it through that lens, skipping Qatar isn't just a choice, it's a survival tactic. The woman is emotionally shattered and physically running on fumes. She needs a minute to decompress from the trauma of Melbourne before she even thinks about picking up a racket again. Jumping into another tournament 7 days later would be a total catastrophe. But wait, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't it a little too convenient that she's bailing on the one event where she has 0 points to defend and a spotty recent track record? If this were a massive stage like Indian Wells or Miami with serious stakes on the line, would she still be claiming mental burnout? Or would she suddenly dig deep and find the will to grind it out? Now, I'm not accusing her of faking it. We all know athlete burnout is a serious beast. But let's be real, players are becoming master tacticians about where they show up and where they ghost. The schedule is a nightmare. You physically cannot do it all. So you prioritize the events that pad your ranking, your wallet, and your history books. Everything else is just noise. And for a lot of these pros, the Qatar Open is sitting squarely in the skip it pile. It's the perfect storm, terrible timing right after the Australian Open, plus a brutal long-haul flight to the Middle East. And since it's the appetizer to Dubai, which is the main course, it's no shocker. Players are taking a pass on Doha this year. The crazy part, Sabalenka actually owned this place back in 2020, snatching the trophy on her very first try. You'd think that would earn the tournament some loyalty points, but clearly not enough to drag an exhausted player onto the court. Hoisting a trophy 6 years back doesn't mean you owe them your soul forever, especially when your tank is empty. Meanwhile, the folks running the show must be in full-blown crisis mode. They hyped this up as a clash of titans to sell seats, and now their number one attraction is basically a default option because everyone else fled. The roster is now packed with names that would make a casual fan say, "Who?" Those blockbuster showdowns everyone wanted gone, because the stars didn't align literally. If you're a fan, you have to be fuming right now. You dropped cash months ago, hoping to see Sabalenka, Pegula, and Osaka. Instead, you watch them drop like flies until you're left with something that looks more like a minor league skirmish than a premier WTA event. Honestly, I wouldn't blame anyone for demanding their money back. But flip the script to the athlete's view, especially Sabalenka, fresh off a crushing defeat, and prioritizing health is the only smart move. You can't give what you don't have. Forcing a Doha appearance would likely end in a quick loss and an even deeper depression. This mess really shines a spotlight on the broken state of the tour calendar. We're talking way too many high-stakes events jammed into a tiny window. They expect these women to be gladiators for basically 11 straight months. The break is so short you can barely heal a bruise, let alone reset your brain. So they have to be ruthless with their choices, and Qatar just drew the short straw. Now, Iga Swiatek sliding into the top spot is interesting. She is the world number 2 and arguably the deadliest player alive, especially with her main rivals, MIA. Suddenly, Swiatek's road to the trophy looks like a freshly paved highway. She has to be eyeing this bracket and seeing free ranking points and a massive payday. But does it feel a bit empty to anyone else? Taking the crown because the competition forfeit isn't the same as crushing the best in the world face to face. You get the hardware, sure, but the critics will always whisper, "Yeah, Swiatek won, but where were the heavy hitters?" On the bright side, the up-and-comers getting bumped into the main stage must be absolutely thrilled. Lightning has struck for underdogs like Alexandra Ayala, Daria Kasatkina, and Kristina Buxa, handing them a golden ticket to the big leagues they never saw coming. We are looking at a potential career-defining moment that could launch these athletes into the stratosphere. Making waves in a premier tournament, even one riddled with dropouts, is the kind of rocket fuel that transforms rankings and rebuilds a player's entire future. That is the hidden thrill inside this absolute mess. While the event loses its heavy hitters, the suspense factor goes through the roof. Get ready because a total unknown could catch fire, go on a tear, and become the season's breakout sensation. This is the savage beauty of the game. When the titans vanish, the hungry challengers rise to take the throne. Now for Aryna Sabalenka, the battle plan is crystal clear: recharge the batteries and unleash hell at the Dubai Championships. Let's be real, Dubai is the heavyweight champion. Here we are, talking about the prestige of a WTA 1000 versus Qatar's 500 level status. It is just cold hard logic to skip the appetizer so you can feast on the main course with a full tank of gas. She is not ditching the Middle East swing, she is just playing four-dimensional chess with her energy reserves. Expect the Dubai draw to be absolutely stacked with killers because the appearance fees and prize money there are too massive to ignore. Welcome to the gritty truth of the pro circuit: cash is king. When the check has enough zeros at the end, miraculous recoveries happen and everyone is suddenly ready to rumble. If the money isn't there, well, suddenly everyone needs a mental health break, exposing the ugly disconnect between the stands and the locker room. Fans are demanding gladiators. They want the best of the best every single week, leaving their blood and sweat on the court. But the athletes, they are trying to survive the season without snapping a tendon, win the titles that matter, and secure the bag while they can. These two realities are crashing into each other head-on. The WTA needs to wake up and fix this brutal calendar, or we are going to watch this disaster play out on repeat. Tournaments will continue to look like ghost towns because the roster is physically broken, burned out, and running on fumes. The solution is simple: space out the schedule, cut the mandatory events, or jack up the payouts, so players have a reason to fight through the pain. Until that changes, we are stuck with situations like Qatar, where a blockbuster event gets reduced to a shadow of its potential. Sabalenka bowing out is just the headline grabber today, but mark my words, this is a symptom of a much larger disease. As long as the machine is rigged this way, players will keep gaming the system to protect their bodies and their wallets. So there is the verdict: Aryna Sabalenka and a legion of elites have abandoned the Qatar Open. Now that court is basically the Wild West for anyone brave enough to actually lace up their sneakers and play. If you think the WTA calendar is a total mess that needs a complete overhaul, smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. Sound off in the comments, would you still drop hard-earned cash on tickets, knowing the main attractions might bail at the 11th hour?